Welcome back, SDMA woodworkers. All right, so you should have your all of your legs glued up, and once they are dry, then it is time to sand them. Okay, so hopefully you took great care and tried to keep this as flush as possible. All right, because you're going to have to sand it. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and grab our sanding block. All right, this little piece right here works well as a sanding block, and I would go with an 80 grit sandpaper and then work that edge. Just keep sanding it and sanding it and sanding it. All right, it isn't fun, but you gotta get that, you gotta get it flush, okay? So just keep working it, working it, working it. When you get it sanded and when you get it flush, it should look very good. I don't know if this is going to focus for me here because it wants to focus on my face, so I'll put my face there. All right, so anyway, also sand these corners down right here. Take the sharpness off of that, and then when you're all done sanding it, now you cut off just a little bit, and then you measure from that end to 22, and then you cut off the remainder. So your legs should end up being 22 inches long, okay? All right, so now we're going to move on to the spindle part, the part that goes in between the legs. All right, this is this piece right here with the big rabbit cut down the length of it. This is going to be our top stretcher and our bottom stretcher. And what you want to do is measure 8 inches on these. All right, so cut off a nice clean edge. Maybe it's already got a nice clean edge from delivery. But so you'd measure down 8 inches, and I like to use the V technique. I think I showed that to you in Intro to Woods, where I put the pencil right on the 8, and then I draw it this way, and I come back this way, and I put it right on the 8 again, and I draw it that way, and I end up with a V, and that allows me to cut right on that V. And again, I can't get it focused very well, so but you should be able to see a V there, and that cutting blade goes right through that V. So that is what you want to do. I'm going to finish this cut, and I'm going to go ahead and cut 4 pieces that are 8 inches long. All right, 4 pieces that are 8 inches long from this piece right here. Okay, so now I've got my 4 pieces cut. 8 inches, and they all look like this. I'm ready to move on to my spindles. I'm going to cut my spindles out of from these 3 pieces right here. These are about 30 inches long, and they're about 3/8 of an inch thick by 1 inch wide right here. And we're going to cut 6 spindles out of these, 14 inches long. All right, the good news is they're very thin pieces of wood, so they'll cut real quick. All right, so 14 inches is your magic number here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started on that right now. Okay, notice the end of this board right here. Ooh, this is out of focus, but the end of this board is all rough and from the sawmill. And so we want to make sure that we cut that part off. We don't want that at all on any of our spindles. All right, well, I happen to have my 6 spindles now all ready to go. Now these spindles should fit right in here. And if they don't, if they're a little bit tight, just like that, or a little bit tight, I'm going to go ahead and grab my sandpaper and just sand these down just a little bit. Not too much. Try to do it on even sides, and then it fits in there much better. And we are going to want to make sure that it goes all the way down into that channel. So if we have a clamp or a light hammer of some type to get it in there, that's what we want to do. Now we also want to make sure we get it in the right location. So what we need to do is we need to find the center of this board right here, which happens to be 4 inches because we know it is 8 inches long. So we're going to find that 4-inch mark, And in fact, we know that this board right here is 1 inch. All right, it's 1 inch in diameter, or 1 inch in width. And so we want to put this board right there, centered on that 4 inches. So what we need to do is mark a line at 3.5 and 4.5, and that will indicate where we are going to go. So we're going to go right there, 3.5 and 4.5. I hope you can see that. And then we will mark, I'll just use this as a straight edge right here. Okay, so what that means is we are going to place our spindle right there, okay, centered on that board. Now the next spindle is going to be, let's see, right here, okay. There's going to be a 1 inch space in between that spindle. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, here's the trick. See these boards, these little guys right here, these little square sticks, they happen to fit very nicely into this channel. All right, just like that. All right, so they happen to fit very nicely right into this channel. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut this piece of, we're going to cut little 1 inch chunks off of here. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to cut 4 1 inch chunks to get started. All right, well, this is 1 inch, so we can use that as our guide. There we go. Going to do that 4 times real quick. Won't bore you on the video though. All right, this saw cuts on the push and the pull stroke. You might find it easier to have the piece of wood over on the back side of this, because then when you push, you get a much deeper, faster, quicker cut. All right, I've got my 4 pieces now. Right here, 4 pieces, and I am ready to, got this piece centered. I'm going to go ahead and grab another one right here, because these are going to be opposing each other like this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab another one, and I'm going to transfer these lines over here to make sure that I have it centered. And really, that's all we're trying to do is center that middle spindle on here. So now, and we want to do everything on a dry fit. Checking to make sure that I've got it all the way in there, and you can see that I'm missing it just a little bit. So I might need to sand it a little bit more, and that's probably a good idea, to stop and sand all my spindles that I'm going to be using. So they're a little bit tight. Okay, hopefully that helps our cause here a little bit. Oh yeah, good. Goes in there just right. And have my 4 little 1 inch squares. We're going to drop them in. And it is a good idea, before you do this, you want to check to see how they fit. But we definitely also want to have some glue in there. I don't know if I'm going to get that out. So, they do fit, and I'm going to go ahead and clean this off here a little bit. Good. Okay. So now, I'm also checking to make sure that that is nice and flush right there, because it's going to be very hard to sand that smooth with the spindles in there. All right, so I want to make sure, I'm going to show you a little trick here. I want to make sure that I don't glue the spindles in at this time, but I do want to glue these filler pieces in the right location. Alright, so I'd like to get that in a little closer. I'm going to grab one of these sticks to kind of help. There we go. Got it in there nice and tight. Alright, now I can take this spindle out. I want to do that. And you'll notice that now when I put another spindle in here, I need to put another piece of filler in here. And so it should be, mathematically, it should be about 1.5 inches. But we can just shove that in there like so and draw a line, and now we know where to cut it. Whoops, am I getting it off screen? So here we go, I just shoved that in there like so, and then I drew a line to show how long it was. So let me go ahead and cut that real quick. And now this one, it's okay if I make it just a touch long because I can sand it off. There we go. And we're going to fit that in there like so. I'm going to drop a little glue in there. We don't need much, just enough to keep that piece from moving around. Don't need much at all. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take the spindle out. And then you can see that I'm having trouble getting that all the way down there. If I had a hammer, I could lightly tap it. I don't have a hammer, so I'm just going to use something nearby. Okay, that's pretty good. It isn't perfect yet. I do have to make one more cut right here to fill that piece. I do that the same way. We'll put the spindle in there like so, and we'll use this piece right here, stick that in there, and we'll draw a line, give it a quick cut. Go, and we will drop a little bit of glue in there. And leaving that spindle in there, I'm going to push that down, same as before. I've got it pretty close where it needs to go. I can take that spindle out now and do what I was doing before. I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry, and then I'm going to sand it down, okay, until it's nice and flush. And at this time I'll also sand off my pencil marks. No reason to keep them in there because these pieces are going to do the job for me. Alright, so what we're going to do is you're going to do it to this one, and now you've got this one started, you might as well do the same thing to these. Alright? Go ahead and do that, and when I come back, we'll talk about putting the spindles together. Okay, putting the finishing touches on these pieces right here. A couple things to note. You want to try to get this sanded nice and flush because it is going to go up against the leg. All right, and if it's not flush, you might see a little gap right there. So we want to try to spend some time making sure we get that nice and square. But we don't want to, well, we just want it nice and flush, and we want to keep a nice square end to our board. That looks pretty good. This side is all right as well. Off camera, I had a stick. It was sticking out, and it would have taken me forever to sand it. So what I did is I just came in here, and I was able to use the saw to just simply clean off that end. is a lot faster than sanding on this thing forever and a day. So you might want to, you might consider that if you need to. But you want to sand and get all of these nice and flush and looking good. You want to get all of the pencil marks off of there. And then lastly, you might want to hit these little corners right here. We always want to kind of deaden or soften the corners right here. Not too much. And don't worry, you won't take off too much. But just kind of, the corners can be kind of sharp. So a 90-degree corners can be kind of sharp, and maybe get a sliver on there. So it's a good idea to always kind of knock it down a little bit. All right, I think we're good right there. So we are almost ready to finish the spindle assembly. These guys are done. That's good. And we're going to have our 3 spindles. We've already cut them to 14 inches long, and they are all the same length. Might be a good idea to take a look at these. Not every one of them are perfect. There might be some burn marks in there. Clean them up. And it's a good idea to always come back after this and hit it with a 120. So here, this was an 80. All right, you can see the 80 grit right there. And then the other piece of paper is a 120 grit. It is a finer sandpaper, and it's not as aggressive, and it kind of polishes things up a little bit better. So once we get our spindles nice and cleaned up, and it's not a bad idea again to knock down these edges or these corners so they're not so sharp. You never know, someday you might have children, and these children will grab hold of things that you never thought they would grab hold of. And if those corners are kind of sharp, they can actually cut a soft hand. So we want to knock that down. Okay, all right, I'm sure you're excited watching all of this sanding. Now we're going to just simply dry fit these to see how well they go. We can then put a little dab of glue in there. Not much again. You don't want too much glue in there, because if it squeezes out, it's going to be hard to clean up and sand after these are all put together. All right, 1, 2, 3. Good. All right, we'll do the same to this one. There we go. Might be a little tricky. You might ask somebody for an extra hand while you're doing this, but once you get it started, then it should come together. Not a bad idea to take another piece of wood, set it on top of here like this. If you get a hammer, I still haven't got a hammer. Oop. There we go. Okay, so there you have it. You have a spindle all made, and you want to set it down like so. Just make sure it glues up square. But you can put that aside. If you have some clamps to gently clamp it together like that, that's a good idea. But otherwise, if you don't, as long as it glues up nice and square, and it's not kind of kitty-wampus, you can set that aside and go do the other one. So go ahead and make 2 spindle sets like this, and then when we come back, we'll show you how to attach it to your legs.